During my youth, collecting comics in the 1960s, military or war comics as I call them, were popular, and I bought my share. Why were these war comics popular? In this episode of the Comics My Mom Let Me Keep, I'll show you the war comics that I kept when my family moved back in 1969 and provide you with the factors contributing to the popularity of these comic books. Stay tuned for the video. Welcome back, everyone, to Anachronic Comics, where we do deep dives into the world of comic books. I'm your host, Joe, and today, in episode 26 of the Comics My Mom Let Me Keep, we're taking a look at war comic books. As I mentioned in the opening, war comics were very popular in the 1960s. The 1960s were a somewhat turbulent time in the United States, with the Cold War heating up, and later in the decade, the anti-war Vietnam movement. Military comic books depicted World War I and II stories, featuring characters like Sergeant Rock and the Haunted Tank. They were popular in the 1960s for several reasons. First, the historical context. The 1960s were a time when the memories of World War II were still fresh, and many readers had personal connections to the war through family members or their own experiences. These comics provided a way to explore and understand the war's impact. Second, patriotism and heroism. These comics often highlighted themes of patriotism, bravery, and heroism, which resonated with readers. Characters like Sergeant Rock embodied the ideal soldier fighting for justice and freedom. Third, escapism. During the 1960s, the world was facing new conflicts such as the Vietnam War. Military comics offered an escape by focusing on past wars, allowing readers to engage with stories of clear-cut heroism and victory. Fourth, compelling storytelling. Writers and artists like Robert Kanigher and Joe Kubert created engaging and well-crafted stories that drew readers in. The combination of action, drama, and historical settings made these comics appealing. And fifth, cultural influence. The popularity of war movies and TV shows during this era also contributed to the interest in military or war comics. These comics were part of a broader cultural fascination with war stories. Overall, military comics provided a mix of entertainment, education, and emotional connection, making them a popular genre in the 1960s. Okay, let's take a look at the comics I kept and do a bit of a deep dive into a few of the characters. All right, let's start with All American Men of War, number 112 from December 1965. This issue introduces Lieutenant Steve Savage, also known as the Balloon Buster. It showcases his daring aerial exploits during World War I, where he earns his nickname by taking down German observation balloons. His cowboy upbringing is evident in his daring and unorthodox flying style, which often puts him at odds with his superiors. The issue sets the tone for this character, blending high-stakes aerial combat with personal struggles, as Savage grapples with his own sense of morality amid the chaos of war. The story highlights his rebellious nature and fearless combat skills. The cover and interior art is by Russ Heath, and Robert Kanigher wrote the story. All American Men of War, number 113 from February 1966, titled The Ace of Sudden Death. This issue continues Savage's adventures. It delves into his confrontations with enemy pilots and his struggles with the psychological toll of war. It added depth to his character. It was written by Hank Chapman, and the cover is by Joe Kubert. All American Men of War number 114 with a Joe Kubert cover dated April 1966. It's titled The Ace Who Died Twice. This issue showcases one of Savage's most dramatic adventures. In this story, Savage faces a German train and saves a woman from enemy shelling, demonstrating his bravery and compassion. The climax features a gripping moment where Savage clings to an airplane wing with only his pistol, highlighting his resourcefulness and determination. This issue further develops his character, showing both his heroism and the toll of war on his psyche. My last issue of All American Men of War that my mom let me keep is number 116, titled Circle of Death. Savage is up against an enemy pilot known as the Executioner. The story also includes moments of personal connection as Savage experiences brief flirtations, one of which ends tragically, adding emotional weight to the narrative. Another Joe Kubert cover. Now, one of the two top war-related comics books published by DC during the 1960s was G.I. Combat, which had as its primary hero one of the most unique and supernatural war comics ever created, Jeb Stuart and the Haunted Tank. This fascinating story centers on Lieutenant Jeb Stuart, a commander of an M3 Stuart tank during World War II. But here's the twist. He's guided and protected by the ghost of his ancestor, Confederate General J.E.B. Stuart. Yes, you heard that right. A spectral general with Civil War roots lends his wisdom and advice as Jeb and his crew navigate the dangers of war. Now, what makes this series so compelling is its unique blend of gritty war realism and eerie supernatural elements. The comic doesn't shy away from exploring moral dilemmas, teamwork, and the psychological toll of war, while still delivering plenty of action-packed tank battles. The ghost of General Stuart often provides cryptic warnings, which Jeb has to interpret to save himself and his crew. This dynamic creates a tension-filled narrative as Jeb balances trust in the ghost's advice with his own judgment as a leader. Jeb Stuart and the Haunted Tank debuted in G.I. Combat number 87 back in 1961 and was created by writer and editor Robert Kanigher and artist Russ Heath. The story explores the ghost's decision to guide the crew during World War II, blending supernatural elements with wartime drama. My first issue is G.I. Combat number 109 from January of 1965. The script was by Kanigher and pencils by Joe Kubert. This issue, titled The Battle of the Tank Graveyard, showcases the Haunted Tank crew navigating a perilous battlefield filled with destroyed tanks. They must outwit German forces while grappling with the eerie presence of their ghostly guardian, General J.E.B. Stuart. Next is G.I. Combat number 114, written by Kanigher and drawn by Russ Heath, a standout issue that delves deeper into the relationship between Jeb and his crew, exploring how they deal with the supernatural element of their tank. This issue's story is the battle origin of the Haunted Tank. Lieutenant Jeb Stuart, suffering from a concussion, recounts how the ghost of General J.E.B. Stuart came to haunt his tank. G.I. Combat number 115, dated January 1966, is another Kanigher-Heath collaboration. It teams up Lieutenant Johnny Cloud, a Native American fighter pilot, with Jeb Stuart and the Haunted Tank. Lieutenant Stuart receives a medal for helping Lieutenant Cloud in an air battle, and Lieutenant Cloud receives a medal for helping the Haunted Tank in a tank battle. G.I. Combat number 116, with a cover date of March 1966, is another team-up of Lieutenant Johnny Cloud with Jeb Stuart and the Haunted Tank. General J.E.B. Stuart warns the Haunted Tank that history will repeat itself. Later, the Haunted Tank helps the Greek tank commander hold a pass against German tanks, similar to the ancient Greek battle at Thermopylae, and this is a Joe Kubert cover. G.I. Combat number 117, titled Tank in the Icebox. This story involves the Haunted Tank being frozen by a Nazi secret weapon. The enemy plans to defrost it and use the tank against its own crew, creating a tense and unique story. Nice Joe Kubert art on this May 1966 cover. And my last issue of G.I. Combat that my mom let me keep back in 1969 is issue number 119 from September of 1966. In a chilling story, a deserter takes over the haunted tank as a means of escape, but learns a lesson about sacrifice and saves the crew. The remaining 6 war comics that my mom let me keep are all Our Army at War, starring the most popular and iconic comic book war hero of the time, Sergeant Rock. Sergeant Franklin, or Frank Rock, first appeared in Our Army at War number 83 in 1959, brought to life by writer Robert Kanigher and artist Joe Kubert. Set during World War II, Sergeant Rock leads Easy Company, a diverse group of soldiers fighting on the front lines of Europe. Known for his cigar-chomping toughness, unwavering leadership, and fierce loyalty to his men, Sergeant Rock embodies the spirit of the unsung heroes who endure the horrors of war. What makes Sergeant Rock so compelling is his humanity. He's not just a fearless soldier. He's a man deeply affected by the weight of command and the loss of his comrades. The story often explores themes of sacrifice, brotherhood, and the moral ambiguities of war, making them more than just tales of action. And of course, Joe Kubert's incredible artwork brought these battlefields and characters to life like no one else could. My first issue is Our Army at War number 146 from September of 1964. Sergeant Rock and Easy Company face a harrowing mission during World War II, told from the perspective of their guns. Written by Robert Kanigher, the story, titled The Fighting Guns of Easy, is uniquely narrated from the perspective of the guns themselves. Each gun recounts its role in the battles fought by Sergeant Rock and Easy Company, offering a distinctive and poignant view of the soldiers' struggles, bravery, and sacrifices. This narrative approach adds depth to the story, emphasizing the tools of war as witnesses to the chaos and humanity of combat. This is easily, if not my favorite, one of my favorite war comic books. It's a fascinating storytelling technique that highlights the emotional and physical tolls of war in a fresh way. Joe Kubert's artwork vividly brings the intensity and humanity of the story to life. Next up is issue 160 from November of 1965. Kanigher and Kubert handled the issue of the master race, as Nazis called themselves. Captured by Nazi paratroopers, Easy Company and member Jackie, who had lost the heavyweight crown to the German Ulan, who is now beating up Jackie. Jackie refused to fight back so as to save his mates. It's a chilling story, and the ending is instructive. Now, issue 162 and 163 have the return of the Viking Prince, who was first seen way back in Brave and the Bold number 1's Battle for the Dragon Ship in 1955. I don't have number 162, but I do have number 163, with a cover date of February 1966, where Sergeant Rock and the Viking Prince reunite with Easy Company to destroy a Nazi terror drone base. In issue 165 from March 1966, The Return of the Iron Major, Easy Company finds themselves in a castle owned by a Contessa who was the girlfriend of his old enemy, the Iron Major, who returns and ends up fighting Sergeant Rock. Next up is issue number 166 from April 1966. In a story titled Half a Sergeant, Sergeant Rock receives orders to capture Bloody Hill no matter the sacrifices. The hill has strong defenses, and Rock is troubled by the thought of his men dying. When Easy Company is caught in intense gunfire, he tells them to retreat. Afterwards, he gets rid of the order, aware that he will be executed for not following it. And last on my list of the war comics my mom let me keep in 1969 is issue 167 from May of 1966. In Kill One, Save One, Sergeant Rock faces a moral and tactical dilemma during a World War II mission. The story explores the harsh realities of war, as Rock must make a difficult decision whether to kill an enemy soldier in order to save a member of Easy Company. This narrative delves into the complexities of leadership, sacrifice, and the human cost of war. Joe Kubert's artwork and Robert Kanigher's storytelling bring emotional depth and intensity to this gripping tale. Okay, a few last words. The creative team behind Sergeant Rock and many of the memorable stories in Army at War were two of the most talented figures in the comic book industry. Robert Kanigher was known for his ability to craft emotionally compelling and action-packed war stories. His writing often explored the human side of war, showcasing the camaraderie, bravery, and moral dilemmas faced by soldiers. Joe Kubert brought Kanigher's stories to life with his dynamic and evocative illustrations. Kubert's bold lines, expressive characters, and gritty style perfectly captured the intensity and chaos of the battlefield. By the late 1980s, a great number of venerable war titles from the Silver Age of comic books died out. Two of his longest-running titles were G.I. Combat, which was originally published by Quality before moving to DC. It ran 288 issues from 1952 to 1987. And Our Army at War, later retitled Sergeant Rock, with a combined run of 422 issues from 1952 to 1988. Comic books about war during the 1950s and 60s served as both a mirror and a shaper of societal values during a turbulent era. They offered a sense of patriotism and heroism while also grappling with the complexities and tragedies of war. These comic books not only influenced the audiences of their times, but also left an indelible mark on the medium and storytelling in general. So do you have a favorite comic book war hero? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.